All right, ladies and gentlemen, my distinct true pleasure to be able to introduce you to the man that founded our company, a true visionary. We all wouldn't be here if it weren't for him, and I'm just so thrilled that he's been able to write it down in his book, and he's going to tell us all about it right now. So this is Mark Wagner. Take it away.
Awesome, thank you, Michelle. Those of you that may not know, Michelle's our regional director in Canada and runs the whole subsidiary in Canada. She's amazing. And like myself, Michelle's a former teacher. Everybody you see in the green shirts is either practicing in a school in some capacity or was and is now working with us. But I'm a former high school English teacher. I was a tech coordinator at the site, district, and county levels at Orange County in California. But 12 years ago, I left my very political job at the county and founded EdTechTeam instead. And I couldn't have been a better life decision. It's just been a long adventure of working with amazing schools all over the world. And actually the book is an effort to distill some of that down into a digestible format and share it with you guys. So I'm going to be sharing a few of those stories today and a little bit of the framework that the book and our work is built around. But I feel like it needs a little explanation first, because the talk now lends its title to the book. So I'll explain the more now and the message from the future. But I'm going to start by explaining this guy, because this is my son, Finn. He's 8, and he was very patient with the photo shoot with the light rig that he had to stare down into, like he was looking at the future. But I think we got a beautiful cover out of it. But if we rewind the clock a little bit, this is Finn on the left here doing tummy time while his brother Clark is doing screen time on his iPhone. And if you ask yourselves, if we could look into Finn's future and see what that's going to be, what is he going to need out of his schooling to get there? What sort of things is he going to see? What's his life going to be like when the iPhone is the worst computer he'll ever see, right? And I can tell you part of that story now because this was a few years ago. In kindergarten, Finn started texting his mom. And as a former high school English teacher, I'm particularly proud that even then his voice was coming through in his writing. Okay, fine. I'm just gonna go take his bath, right? Now we've recently got the Oculus Go, and Finn has a lot of fun playing virtual reality. And I'll never forget the first time we had it was the Google Cardboard, actually. First time he put it on his face, and he was in Google Earth, and he could look down. I think he was over Rome or something. And he says, I can see the city, I can see the city. And he hits the little button on the side, and then he zooms out, and he's like, I'm in space, I'm in space. It's a great video, but he's in his underwear, so I'm not going to share it. But Finn recently got to go on a field trip to a place in Irvine where we live called Cunero. And they actually put relatively inexpensive, we're talking like $69 on Amazon, brainwave sensors on their heads. What's up, Darren? Speaking of Irvine. And the kid, you've been here, haven't you? Anyway, they can actually measure the kid's brainwaves while the kid is doing a learning game. So he's actually playing a math game in this photo. And as he gets frustrated, it sort of simplifies the interface and the concepts he's dealing with. And if he's in the flow state and he's having a great time, then it makes it harder and harder and more challenging, right? So in educator terms, it really keeps him in that zone of proximal development. So there's a lot that's already happening in Finn's short life since tummy time with the iPhone. He's got the three-dimensional virtual reality experience with the Oculus Go, and that's definitely only the beginning. He's already having teachers measure his brainwaves. So where do we go from here? By the way, lest you guys think all I do is strap weird devices on Finn's head, he also loves to hike and go outside and play woodcraft, where he makes his own toys out of wood. So he's made a Nexonite shield, the Lego show you guys may be familiar with. But Finn draws a lot of his inspiration undoubtedly from video games. His love of Minecraft led to interest in geology, and his love of Plants vs. Zombies got us talking about biology too. But the same way Finn draws some inspiration from video games, we might draw our inspiration from music. And I'm a big U2 fan, so this is The Edge. He's U2's guitarist. And I actually took this photo with my Palm Trail in 2005, if you guys remember those devices. The idea, though, by the way, best seat in the house, because Bono can run around and do his thing. You can actually watch The Edge. I like when I share this picture with teachers, I like to say that he was playing the opening riffs to a song called Miracle Drug And any like hardcore U2 fans? Ah, there we are. Forget the English teachers. It's the U2 fans I'm looking for. In that song, there's a lyric that says, "With science in the human heart, there is no limit." And you wouldn't necessarily know the story of the song unless you read about it. It's a big anthemic rock song, perfect for arena rock or stadiums. But if you learn the story behind it, they actually went to high school with a kid who was born paraplegic. So no use of any of the voluntary muscles in his body. No reason to believe he was anything other than a vegetable. But as the story goes, his parents had faith that he was and took him places, included him in their lives, read to him. And sure enough, when he was 13, they developed a miracle drug, that's the name of the song, that allowed him some limited motion of his neck. So they put a unicorn on his head, essentially. He learned to type, and by 17, he was a published poet. He just had all these songs and lyrics and poems in his mind of all those years, and now they can get out. And he lived it well into his 30s. He was a semi-famous Irish novelist, so it's a really fantastic story, but it led to that line of, "With science in the human heart, there is no limit." And I think that really speaks to what we do here at EdTechTeam, because we take science and technology of all this stuff we see at ISTE and marry that with the heart of a teacher, and all of a sudden there's no limit to what's possible in the classroom. So when they play this song live, they often dedicate it to public servants, firefighters, policemen, doctors, sometimes teachers. But one particular time when they were doing this live, and I got to see the recording, they're in Toronto, and that's right. And Bono comes out and he says, "This is Edge is playing these opening riffs." And Bono says, "This is the sound Edge's spaceship made when it came to Earth," because Edge is known to be something of a geek. And the crowd loves it. So Bono goes on, he says, "Edge stepped out of the ship," and Larry Mullen, the drummer, said, "Where are you from?" Edge said, "The future." And Adam Clayton, the bassist, said, "What's it like?" Edge said, "It's better." And they launch into this anthemic song about science and the human heart. And again, I think that's what brings us all here together, right, is that we believe we can make the future better for all the Finnegans of the world, right? One question I always like to ask teachers always, if you had a message from the future for the educators of today, what would that be? And I'll actually pause just for a moment and let you guys share with somebody next to you. If you had a message from the future for the educators of today, what would that be? And you want to put your Marty McFly vest on, and you can go 30 years into Finn's future. What do you see? Anyone want to share it with us? Yeah. It was worth it. I've not heard that one. That's fun. Yeah. They still need us, absolutely. Yep. Even with the brainwave monitors on their heads. Maybe more than ever. Well, part of the answer in the book and part of our answer at EdTechTeam is actually this honeycomb for school change. One of the things we've learned over the years is a lot of people want to spend all their effort right here, right? Is it going to be Chromebooks or iPads? How much RAM is it going to have? What operating system is it going to run? And if you spend all your effort there, what winds up happening is you get new projectors for this, because we all saw this phase in EdTech, right? You get a new projector for an LCD projector, but the teacher puts the old overhead on top of it and keeps writing their notes, right? So what we have to do is actually consider all of these elements. Is courageous leadership. You've got to have the leaders who are willing to take a risk and break that cycle of it's somebody else's responsibility. You've got to have empowered teachers, giving them the time and space that they need to adopt new technologies and new pedagogy. You want inspiring spaces that reflect the culture that you want in your school. And you want an engaged community, because ideally they can be the drivers to change in the school. Certainly you want robust infrastructure, but that's not just devices and a pipe to the internet. That's also things like the policy infrastructure that removes impediments to teachers' adoption of new things and new innovations. And ultimately, the focus is student agency, the kids being the active ones who are creating, making, doing, and sharing. So with my remaining time, I actually want to share a few stories that will take us on a tour of the honeycomb. Ben Gray was at the time an assistant superintendent at CCSD 59, not that far from here. You guys may know him, you may know the story, but if anybody's local. But when they were doing their one-to-one rollout years ago, the teachers were very concerned that they were going to be evaluated on this, right? That this would be a part of their evaluations, it would be punitive in some way. So the leadership of the district, with Ben's help, decided to remove removed that from the equation, and they suspended teacher evaluations for 2 years while they launched their one-to-one program. And there's a lot of schools I've talked to are like, oh, we couldn't do that. But they did. No teacher evaluations for 2 years in the whole district while they adopted their one-to-ones. Not surprisingly, they're 2-to-1 now. Kids have tablets and laptops, and it's amazing, just with normal public funding, right? And Yarmouth High School in Maine, they do a great job. And Maine, by the way, is way ahead of all of us with all their one-to-one implementations. They've been doing this for almost 20 years. But Maine actually does a great job providing that time and space for their teachers. When we went and did a summit there, you don't see them sitting in rows and lectures, right? They're sitting around rounds, supporting each other, helping each other. The principals and other leaders are in there with them. And they had that courageous leadership that said 20 years ago, we're going to go one-to-one with laptops in our middle schools. And that was their governor. So they went all the way to the top then. It was Angus King, right? When I was at Albany Senior High School in New Zealand, this is one of my favorite schools to talk about, but particularly because of their focus on student agency. And it's evident everywhere around the school. These two boys had worked on a windmill to generate renewable power, but this was part of what they called their impact project. And all day, every Wednesday, every kid spent the day on their impact project. So if I was a student at that school, I come up with an idea, I pitch it to 3 teachers. As long as 3 faculty members sign off on it, that's what I'm doing. And the kids build windmills, and they build cars, and they paint murals, and they produce plays and movies, and they write software. And the evidence of this is all over the school. It's clear that that school is focused on student agency. And if we talk about inspiring spaces, there's a lot I could share with you, but I shared this one from Minarets High School in California, where they had the opportunity to rebuild the school. They had a new bond and so forth. They sat on it for a long time. They got a lot of feedback, including from a guy named John Carippo, who's now the executive director of Q in California. John told them things like, this thing that you call the library, take that off the side and call it the media center. Make it look like a Starbucks, and the kids will come hang out there. So there's still 10,000 books right behind us right here from this perspective. But the kids, sure enough, do come hang out in the Starbucks-like media center. And they removed the textbook storage room because they're one-to-one, and made that their green screen room. There's a lot of changes like that. They had a no homework rule. It was all project-based learning. And guess what? Kids took their projects home, and they were into it. But these were huge cultural changes at the school, but they had all these elements, including the space that reflected the culture they wanted to see at the school. Now, that doesn't have to be expensive. Tanya Avrith in Lester B. Pearson School Board outside of Montreal at the time begged her principal and got $2,500 to redo her classroom. She did get a flat screen TV, which was a lot of it, but the furniture was all made in the wood shop and could be put together in different configurations. They painted the whole room white, which completely changed the look of it. They brought in some cheap whiteboard, I think it was actually shower board, and a coffee maker, right? And now it's the white room. And even long after she's gone, that's the room where the kids all want to hang out at break and lunch and after school. So for $2,500, she did her own classroom makeover. No need for expensive bonds, right? Now, if we talk about community engagement, community can sometimes be a hindrance if you haven't engaged them, right? If you're doing project-based learning on devices and the kids are loud and chaotic in the classroom, beautiful chaos, my high school senior English teacher would have called it. But teachers come in and see that, and they're expecting quiet kids in rows, you've got a problem. But if you do like they did at Westlake Independent School Districts, they brought Monica Martinez to work with them before she came to us. And her job was to engage the community and show them what was possible with their one-to-one iPad rollout and what kids could be doing with these devices now. It was all focused on creativity and publishing. And ultimately, at that point, the parents then went and said, well, that's not happening in this class. How come my son's teacher's not using it, right? And they became a driving force for the community. And the teachers started asking to have Monica come in and work with them, and so on. They got the ball rolling. Finally, this picture is actually from Maine again when they first went one-to-one 20 years ago. But it's another opportunity to talk about not just the devices and the pipes out, but what's the policy infrastructure you have. Our friend Stephanie Shipton in Hawaii worked with the Department of Ed for many years. She's just recently left to form a nonprofit. But she said her job was to get the impediments out of the way. A lot of times the policy is the impediment, but if you can have policies that make it easy for teachers to adopt new things and take new risks and to fail from time to time, then that completely changes the culture of what's possible, and that can happen at a policy level too. So it's a brief tour of the honeycomb. It's a brief glimpse into some of the anecdotes that are in the book. And don't worry, there's plenty of expert voices in there too. It's very much a team effort, like everything we do at EdTechTeam. So you actually learn something from the efforts in addition to experts, in addition to hearing my stories. But I need to explain the rest of the title, the more now part. As many of my colleagues standing around will know, I'm sort of known for ending my emails with the phrase "more soon," and this began as sort of an element of guilt for me, right? Like I know that I've got to get you something right now. There's way more that I owe you, but here's this at least, the more soon, right? It was my admission that I knew this didn't include everything that they needed, but I'm on it. However, it turns out when Jenny would get my emails, and I use Jenny, it's fun that she's in this story and everybody knows her so well here at ISTE, but she had this guilty reaction to them because she thought I was not saying, Jenny, get back to me quickly about this. It was like, get back to me more quickly, get back to me more soon. So she always felt like she had to jump on that and get back to me, right? And then happily, when we hired Jenny, her 2-word response to me was "more now." We had a good laugh about this as the whole thing unraveled. But then we realized, wow, there's really something to this more now. Like we're doing this now. We're not waiting. And the more we dug into the philosophy, we realized this is less yesterday, right? It's very easy in education to get wrapped up in the past and the way things have always been done. But it's also less tomorrow. It's very easy for those of us in education technology to get wrapped up in what could be or what should be instead of what's happening right now. So all the stories that I shared here, all the stories that are in the book, even the Cunero headset, this is right now. This all exists. There are schools doing it all over the world in all different school systems at all different grade levels. And there's no reason for us not to be doing that together in your schools too. So I'll wrap up with another U2 lyric that I think is relevant. I draw a lot of inspiration from them, but one of my favorite songs that I never thought I would hear live is called Zooropa. It's very much about living in the chaos of technology. They wrote this in 1993. And I finally got to see it live a couple years ago when they took this monstrosity on the road and the entire screen stretched down and enveloped the band inside. And it's this crazy techno song, not like their style at all. But by the end of the song, they've sort of escaped it. And Edge's riff is clear guitar sounds that are cutting through the noise and the chaos. And the lyric that Bono is singing over and over is, she's going to dream up the world she wants to live in. She's going to dream out loud. So when we talk about more now, less yesterday, less tomorrow, we don't want to get stuck in our dreams of what could be as education technologists, right? We want to dream out loud today. What do you want your school to look like? Go do it right now. Be like Tanya Averith, right? A banker principal, whatever it is, to break that cycle of it being somebody else's problem. Because ultimately, my vision for the future is that we're able to support kids like Finn and give them the tools that they need to deal with whatever obstacles are in their future. Allow them to access and use information in a way that's meaningful to them, regardless of what we can't foresee. And that's how we've got to prepare them for their future. So I invite you guys to dream out loud with us. We are going to give away a copy of the book, and I'm happy to stick around and answer questions and talk to you guys. And we at EdTechTeam would love to work with you, of course, at your schools and your districts and wherever else you guys find yourselves serving students. So thanks for having me, Michelle and everybody, and Lisa. Thank you. Now we get to give away some stuff, right?